Let's just read this.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. This book is all about recreating.
Join us for chapter 1,
Yes.
page 1, as we read the rule book. All right. Welcome, everyone. On today's sit and talk, we will be discussing bolt action. So stick around as we ramble for an hour on how we think the game goes. Alright everyone, so today we start our new series of sit and talks. I'm not going to discuss too much about what exactly that is. I'm going to have another video on the page already at this point, magically, that kind of goes over what a sit and talk is. But real quick, if you haven't watched that, basically what we're going to do today is we're going to discuss bolt action specifically, but our sit and talk series are going to be 4 main talking points that we're going to go over. The game, how we think it plays, some things that really stand out to us.
Components,
components,
play styles.
Right, some things that really make it worthwhile to playing. In the grand scheme of the internet and YouTube world, there's no sense in doing a how-to on a game system that's been around for, 8 years. Because,
yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, because you can find all that stuff, but we really want to talk about what makes the games fun for us and stand out to us. So the format is going to be the same for every game system we talk about in the future. It's going to be 4 main talking points. Those talking points are going to be the thoughts on the rule book as far as physical and layout and all that stuff. Thoughts on the product line as far as, again, how much is out there, how well they do at filling those needs, the quality of the product line, that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about rules, play style that kind of make the game unique or that stand out to us and make it enjoyable to play, anything that kind of puts it out there above the rest. And then, of course, to be a little bit negative Nancy, we're always going to finish off with things that we feel could be better, whether it be with the game system or products. Not going to use this to bash on any game systems, just some things from us playing that we think that can be added to.
No matter how good a game is, there's always room for improvement.
Yeah,
with things,
exactly. So, and it's good to get different people's thoughts on that. So, we'll always have a panel of 2 to 3 personnel talking about it. And again, I'm going to preface this one as I preface all others. What you hear today is not anything specific on bashing any game system or any other game systems. Right. These are our personal opinions.
Yeah, just personal preferences.
So if you don't like what we have to say, feel free to bash us independently.
But bash him.
No one ever likes what you have to say, Eric.
That's true. You got me there.
Yeah. So first we're going to start with, again, this one's going to be on bolt action. We're going to talk about what bolt action is very briefly. Bolt action is a World War II 28 millimeter skirmish-sized game played at the platoon level, produced by Warlord Games. I guess you can say it's their flagship out of all their other game systems.
I would say so.
The book is co-published by Osprey
Games.
Who does obviously a lot of historical stuff and a lot of games. But it's played at the platoon level, which means that each unit on the battlefield is basically going to be representative of a squad, weapons team, individual, if it's your LT or something
Very
like that.
customizable.
Right, yep. But it's so it's played at the platoon level, so your commander on the field is usually going to be a lieutenant, whether it be a first or second lieutenant.
And I guess we should also make note that this is the 2nd edition
Correct,
rule
yes.
book.
So first edition for Bolt Action was produced in 2012. Second edition came out in 2016.
2016.
Yep. So they're on version 2 now. There's talks about a version 3, but there's been talks about a version 3 for about 2 years now.
Been going on for a while. I remember seeing about that a while ago.
Warlord have already come out and said that their version 3 is nowhere in the near future. So we can safely say we're going to be on version 2 for a little bit.
Yeah, and honestly, probably at this point, they have things pretty streamlined with this system.
We'll
talk about more of
things. We'll talk about some things that I could see tweaking, but I don't see a need for a whole new version.
As far as making a whole new version to fix some of the smaller things that we think, it's probably not necessary.
Yeah. So, why are you even listening to us? So, our little bit of a quick background history on us personally, as far as bolt action goes, and our history with it. I don't know if you want to kind of go through how long ago did you get started?
It was about 2 years ago for me. I stopped. We play a lot of different tabletop games. This isn't my first by any means, and I stopped here at our local shop, and I knew these guys were playing it, and I wasn't really honestly that interested in historical games, until now.
Yeah. Now we got you hooked on them.
Yeah, when I walked in and I saw the presents on the table, how well the maps looked, it was beautiful. A lot of the players had really well painted, based figures, and I saw the tanks. I was like, oh, tanks! I can blow stuff up. Yeah. So I just watched, and the very first day I watched, I wasn't completely bought in yet until I came back to a demo day, and I got to play a small demo, and I fell in love with it immediately. And I think the thing that caught my attention the most, besides all the other stuff I previously talked about there, was the pinning mechanism in this. It just makes for such a tense gaming experience.
Yep.
Because you don't always have to destroy, kill enemy units or anything really to win games, to really do well in this game. Pins just add so much more tension, and we'll talk a little bit more about rules and stuff.
Yeah, we'll get into that because that's one of my
pinning. The pinning was new to me as a tabletop gamer. I've never seen, because I didn't play. I don't know what other games have that mechanism. The big ones. I don't know if we can talk about the other ones, but
we'll talk about it eventually when it's our turn for a sit.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't have anything else to compare the pinning mechanism to, but to me it was like it stood out to as far as other games I've played, and I really thought that was great, and it just really drew me in. And from there on, I was just totally bought in, and I went crazy buying stuff immediately.
Yeah.
So that's my history with it.
And what armies do you primarily play?
Well, you should know, because you usually
You'll
loses to them.
Yeah.
No, we have a lot of close games. We just play mostly for mostly just fun, and hey, you might have made a mistake there. Hey, do you want to back up, do this?
Yeah,
we're not cutthroat with things. I sometimes no. I play late war U.S. and the reason I play it is because I like the run and gun style. I like to be able to move and shoot constantly, trying to hold objectives down, maybe here and there, but also be able to not lose any, not have any penalties for moving and shooting and stuff like that. And it just fit my kind of play style from other games. So that's why I went with the U.S. I'm from the U.S. And it drew me in immediately.
And you'll see his stuff eventually, either before this video or after this video. You're going to see some battle reports with his stuff specifically on it, him and I playing, and you'll see how well he put it together and painted it. And it looks really good. And
hey, thank you.
Plays the Americans pretty well. So for me, it's been probably about 3 to 4 years of playing bolt action. I came over from Flames of War when they went from version 3 to 4. Kind of decided to take a break and look at something else, so I came into bolt action about that time frame. About 2 years ago now, I became a Sarge for Warlord here at Alchemist Cove Games and Comics. Basically what a Sarge is, I don't work for Warlord and I don't work for the store. I'm basically kind of like an independent guy down here that just kind of is a go-between to help get fresh blood.
Does a great job.
Yeah.
Great job. You really great.
You give a free taste, that's what gets them in. That's what the demo days are.
Yep.
So basically what I do is once a month I'll set up a demo day, open play. I run the tournaments and the events here at the Cove. So I've been doing that for about 2 years now with Warlord Games as a Sarge. Primarily I play the Finnish. Again, that's a holdover from... Dirty Fins. Once again, that's a holdover from Flames of War. I picked them before I knew how awesome they were, so I'm just going to put that out for anyone who plays this game knows that the Finns are probably the most powerful minor party.
I would say so. From my experiences.
Absolutely awesome, and so I love them.
Does well with them.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Most of the time.
But so that's my primary army. I also do have some U.S. and German stuff that I use for demos. I don't feel myself very proficient on them because I don't use them that much yet at larger scales. But so Finns are kind of my primary. So that's a real quick, brief background of how we got into bolt action, how long we've been playing, what we play. So now you can see when we discuss later on why our thoughts are maybe biased on some stuff as we go here. So
pins. Great thing.
Yes, which that's one of the big things we'll talk about here. So first we're going to start with the rule book, as far as quality of the rule book, layout of the rule book, the ease of reading it and understanding it, that kind of stuff. So first thought are, what I like is the version 2, when you get the full, it's solid, it's hardback, you know, the pages have like kind of a nice laminate to them, so they're durable.
I mean,
you know,
very well put together.
Yeah, I've cracked, you crack the spine on it for years, and it gets a little soft, but it holds really well. I have no wear and tear on it.
It still looks brand new, and I've had it 2 years now, and I beat the heck out of it. I'll constantly looking things up because our memory isn't that great with a lot of tiny rules sometimes.
Yeah, a lot of the little stuff.
Yeah, sometimes things come up in this game that they don't happen very often, and we're like, now it's been like maybe a couple months since we had this occur. What was that ruling again? So I'm back into the book. But
and as a TO for tournaments, the second that is, I've read over this book I don't know how many times.
Yeah,
I feel like I know it inside and out. And I'll be at a tournament and someone come up to me with some question that,
and it just
like, how the heck did you guys get yourself in that situation that's even being asked? But okay, let's look into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good quality book. I love the durability of it. They also have a small softcover version that you get with the starter set. Again, I've cracked the spine on this thing many times.
I don't have that one.
The same quality as the hardcover. One of the odd things that seems very odd, but for anyone who plays war games for a while, what I like is the number pages on this are the same as they are on this. That's a big deal when you and your opponent are trying to go through something. You're like, oh, the rule's on 35.
Yeah, go to page 35.
And they're on something completely different. Yeah. There are game systems out there that can do that.
I'm not looking at the same 35 as you are.
I love that.
Yeah.
Small, but I love
it. That's nice. And plus, this is convenient to have for, like, say, tournaments and things. You don't have to be carrying around the giant,
The big thing, yep.
Yeah, and this is really nice.
And it's the same, it's everything else. It's just a compact version, so they don't take anything out.
Where does this one exactly come from
So
again? I think you mentioned
this comes from the starter set.
The starter set.
Yep, so when you buy, right now, the Band of Brothers is the version 2 starter set. It's in there. Plus,
because I bought the U.S. starter set.
Correct.
Not in there.
Yeah. It's not in the Army starter sets. It's in the actual version 2 Band of Brothers starter set. The big box set that comes with. Yep. Which again, you can probably find them on eBay as people sell them and have gone to the bigger books.
Yep.
As far as the layout of the book itself, as far as the diagrams and all of that kind of stuff and the images on it, it's very easy to read.
It is first glance. I mean, the pictures stand out. They're
the
detail work.
The diagrams are really nice. They help clarify some stuff. There's a lot of really cool images in here from different Osprey books that they've added, drawings, paintings, that kind of stuff to just give it an extra little bit of flair. There's images, of course, of their perfect example. There's images of their, some of their vehicles and models themselves
scattered throughout the entire book. I mean, artwork. There's a lot of beautiful work in it. This book is really well put together.
Yeah, there's a lot in the beginning. There's a lot of really cool fluff. I can't even say. Sorry, that's a full paw of playing fantasy games for so long. Fluff. There's a lot of really cool historical information.
Historical information.
Not really fluff.
It would be fluff
what happened.
Historically based.
That goes through the timelines of the different campaigns and everything.
There's so much information in here, backstories and things.
Very easy to read. The chapters are laid out nicely. I will say that sometimes some of the rules placement seem like they're in a weird spot to me.
Me too.
One of the things that I've had to spend the most time looking up in this book is when it comes to spotters for like artillery pieces and how to play stuff out.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I have a difficult time, and for some reason I don't know why, but I'm always having a difficult time remembering timing on spotter placement, how far we can place spotters in, things like that. And I'm like constantly, where is that in this book?
Yeah, you would think it would be in with the artillery because you add a spotter, you pay spotters at it, so it'd be in the artillery section, but it's not. It's in a lot of the actual, when you get into the actual gameplay and deployment and that kind of stuff.
A little scattered.
Yeah, so once in a while there's rules that seem like they should be in a different place. When you get into buildings, it can get a little weird with some of the rules and trying to find, there's a whole category in here in buildings, but then you have to go into look at artillery. When you're looking at artillery fire in a building, that's not in the artillery section, that's in the building section.
In the building section.
Which it ends up making sense as you read through it, but sometimes every once in a while something seems kind of weird. So that's kind of my only quirk to it. But again, once you find it, it's very easy to read. It clarifies things really nicely. There's not any kind of counterproductive, contradicting itself type of stuff. It's a very good, easy read as far as that goes. The supplements and army books. So you have the main rule book, and then you have supplements, or you have each army has its own army book, and then you have supplements for different theaters and campaigns. I like the fact that the layout is the same as in the rule book.
Yes.
As far as how to build, special rules and that kind of stuff. The theater books are built kind of a lot similar to the army books when it breaks it down. Yeah. So, again, the uniformity across.
Yeah, I have the U.S.
Right.
Yeah. And it's nice. There's a lot of pictures, a lot of some background, and a lot of information about weapons and how they were utilized, different things like that.
Yeah.
So they're really well done too, but they're not necessary.
Right. Yeah. They're
by any means,
and they don't have the rules and everything.
No, they don't.
Specific how to build those nations.
They're more informative and it's just like a great supplement to the game.
Yeah.
That's what I would consider those.
So they're laid out really well. One of the things that again, so version 2 has been out since 2016, so it's coming up on over 4 years old.
Yeah, coming up on 5 years now.
And they're continually coming out with the new supplements and new theater books.
Well, maybe we will see a new version.
Hopefully. One of the things that I will say, there is a little bit of confusion. You get this in any type of game system where there's a supplement creep of books. Is sometimes there's a little bit of failed consistency through them. One of the things is, when you get into the theater books, you can have specific units for that theater and campaign.
Yes.
When you're building for tournaments and everything, sometimes you're only allowed to use what they consider a generic army. So something that can be in a generic reinforced platoon. Some of those things in those campaign books aren't allowed.
Right.
There's a little inconsistency with some of those books where it'll tell you outright this unit counts as a generic platoon for the base of a reinforced platoon. Sometimes it doesn't tell you that. Sometimes it's worded a little bit differently. So from a tournament standpoint, those supplements would be really nice if they had a consistent way of saying you can use this or you can't.
Right, and tournaments are their own unique.
Right.
There's something completely different than.
And
again, it's playing the game at tournament level and just playing for fun. You can obviously when you're playing for fun and things like that, you can make your own little changes and
you can put in kind of whatever
variances
you want.
and allow different things with the theater books and stuff like that. But most tournaments that he either runs or I've gone to in other places, it's definitely usually like a generic platoon. Not allowing some of the things like
some of those things can be very weighted and seem unfair played in a grand scale tournament, but in that theater it makes sense.
Right.
And you get that because the theater books are written by
the balance of historical accuracy versus tournament.
Exactly,
lists.
competitive play.
Do you want to min and max things for tournaments, or do you want to have an army that's
list.
more historical and
so you get that, and you get just like any other game systems, you have different people within the Warlord organization that are writing these theater books, and so sometimes that's where that little bit of variance comes through. It depends on the writing style of that individual. That's really the only oddball thing to that. Other than that, I always recommend the rule books and the campaign books and the theater books. I think it's one of the they're one of the game systems that do the books justice.
Yes, they do.
Even if you want to buy the books just because you want to read the historical information of that campaign, they do a very good job of writing out the timeline and showing diagrams and images for that campaign. So they do a pretty good job with that.
Honestly, I wasn't half as interested in World War II background. I was. Don't get me wrong. I was always interested, but this game actually made me a lot more interested in learning more. Getting more knowledge about smaller things about the war that I wouldn't have known before. Interesting little stories, little things I would have never known.
Yep.
And it kind of really caught my attention and drew me into that historical.
Even
theme a lot more.
Even if you buy the rule book, one of those books, and you skip all the historical information because you just want to play the game, you find yourself later on sitting on a couch going back and reading and going, I didn't know that.
I actually ended up going out and buying more books related to stories and history of World War II. just because I didn't know as much as I felt like I should have after I started playing this game. It's pretty interesting the way it drew me in.
So overall, what's your overall thoughts on a book as far as the layout and how it all plays out?
I mean, besides the stuff we talked about, obviously it's built like a brick, what. I mean, it's solid as Sears.
What's what?
I think the contents in the front are laid out, pretty well. You have your it talks about your units, your turn order, orders, your movement, your shooting, your weapons, close quarter combat, which is a whole other thing, and how to use your different, it's basically a really good introduction to this book.
What's your thought if a new player walked in today and said, I want to start playing this game, never played tabletop, so you can hand them this rule book and they'd be able to pick up the game system pretty well without understanding tabletop really to that scale?
It's tough for me to say that because I was already a tabletop gamer before I started this. I didn't have any issues learning any of the rules from this book. It's just like he said, some of the stuff scattered a little bit in different places than you think it would be. Most of it is followed in the table of contents to the T for the most part. I didn't have any problems personally as a new player, as someone brand new to this. I think it could be a little bit daunting because this isn't a small scale game. This is right. You're using a lot of units. You're using you could be using different kind. You have your artillery pieces. You have mortars. You have your tanks, and with the different rules sets for the way each piece functions in this game, it's a little bit to take in. But it's not impossible. Someone that's brand new could learn all this relatively easily and get started in this game without too much difficulty. But there's going to be some homework to do and a little bit of reading, and you have to kind of want to dive into this.
And I think that's fair, and I think I'm right along with you. I think it's any rule book to anybody new is going to be daunting unless you're playing like a small scale skirmish game and you got 5 models and it's pretty easy. Yeah. And it's like a 3-page rule book.
This is not I would say a beginner's tabletop game.
Right. Yeah. There's other stuff in it.
There's stuff that's easier to play, but this isn't at the other extreme either. I'd say this falls somewhere in the middle. It has enough meat and potatoes. To keep anyone happy. Any gamer happy.
Yeah, there's some
but
rules.
You could still learn it easily.
There's some rule sets out there for my 20-some years of tabletop gaming that I've read and still have trouble understanding until you're in front of playing it. I like the fact that the stuff that most experienced gamers skip over, they include in this rule book, like your basic supplies, what do you need to play, your dice. Like when it says, like for an experienced gamer, if I said, hey, roll me a D2 and let me know what it is, you understand it's a D6, not half.
Right.
Somebody might not understand that. The rule book does take you through all that. It takes you through what they call it, like the conventions of war, of how you judge sight, what a table boundary is. So I think it does a good job.
Under the basic supplies, as a new gamer, you should probably take the time to understand what's all involved in a game like this. You do need a measuring tape.
Right.
You need your dice. There's going to be, you need something for terrain. Right. If you can use cardboard boxes. You could use books. You could use soda cans. It doesn't have to be the best of the best to get started. To have fun.
Yeah, as a game like teenager, when I started playing, it was Legos were walls, cardboard boxes. You cut out doors and windows. Construction paper was your friend for roads and rivers.
I've used salt and pepper shakers for years already. Put alarms on them. But I mean, you do what you got to do to get started.
So I think for that way, like you said, it's a bit daunting. I think in the end to look at a thick rule book that's I don't know how many pages long, but it does a very good job also of going through and explaining how you measure a miniature, because some people it seems common sense where you measure from front to front, you measure the distance. Some people might have trouble with that. It explains all that. So I think for a new person getting in, they can easily pick it up with somebody there with the experience.
The gameplay is not difficult.
Yeah,
don't get us wrong. There's nothing difficult about playing the game. It's just the interactions between certain units and special weapons and things like how to utilize
as
them.
the Sarge, I've run many a demo, and by turn 4 or 5, people have picked up the basic rules, and now they're just learning the nuances.
The demo, I mean, that's what sold me. Like playing that demo, I picked it up like that. I'm like, okay, I see how this works, and I see exactly what I need to be doing here, and so yeah, it's not really that difficult to learn. It's just a little more than your beginner game, tabletop game, for sure.
So I think that's it. I think we beat that dead horse.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we can move on.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit on the thoughts of the product line as far as the rule supplements, which we already touched on, miniatures, terrain, that kind of stuff. Frankly, I'm gonna start with speaking just on Warlord Games stuff. You know, they have a really good extensive miniature line that I think covers 80 to 90%. Unfortunately, the camera.
Unfortunately, I turned around because I thought it was all behind us.
It's over one more shelf here.
Yeah, we're a little farther.
But you know, they cover 80 to 90% of the options that you need to play the game system.
They make a lot of stuff.
They have it in plastic, metal, resin. They do a pretty good job. One of the things that Warlord Games, metal. We'll get into that in a little bit when we get down here a little further. Some of my thoughts on that. One of the things Warlord realizes and does well is we're talking a 28 millimeter historical game. They realize they do not hold the market on miniatures for World War II 28 millimeter. Nope. There's a lot of options out there. And the cool thing with bolt action is they don't care. Some game systems you have to use their models specifically in a tournament setting.
Right. Lots of games are like that.
Right. Warlord Games understands that, you know what, I'm gonna give you the options and the rules for this really obscure tank.
Yeah.
But there's no sense in us making it because we're only going to sell 2 of them a year.
Yeah.
There's already a model out there for that. Go and buy that.
Someone else makes it.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can easily find.
And a lot of companies make really nice stuff.
Yes, there is. Yeah. And you can find some really good stuff out there, and you can find anything by searching the internet. But again, Warlord does a very good job, I think, of covering all the basics. Plus,
they do,
of what you're going to need.
You couldn't really ask much more from them as a company as far as support for this game.
Right, you get a lot of
tons of support for this.
You get a lot of
great job.
Game systems or game companies out there that are either a rules company, a miniatures company, or both. Specifically, I'm going to offshoot a little bit here. 28 millimeter World War II. There's a great game system out there, which we'll probably end up doing a sit and talk eventually on it, called Chain of Command. 2 fat lardies. Great. The Rich is awesome. It's a great rules company. They make rules. He understands that there are plenty of 28 millimeter World War II models out there that you can buy. So they specifically focus on rule set.
Yep.
You have companies out there that make miniatures that make miniatures more in the fantasy line that you can use for lots of other rule sets. They don't care about making rules.
No, they just make miniatures.
Warlord Games does both.
And they do it well.
And they do it well. And that's the big thing.
Part.
Yeah, you get a lot of
some of the things.
You get a lot of companies out there that sometimes they make rules so they can sell those models they make, and sometimes they make models, a specific model, so you have to go out and buy that other rule book because you want to play a really cool shiny model. Warlord Games, I think,
cool and shiny models.
Yeah, yes, we do. They suck them in.
Yep.
Including me. I think Warlord Games does a very good job of not doing that, of coming up with enough models to cover the main rules, the main armies, the theater books, all that stuff.
You could get by with just their products
easily
without ever looking outside of for 99.9% probably of players that would play this game. They could find everything they wanted to be happy with the models and play this game with just their products.
Absolutely. And one of the things stepping into that is for, like we talked about, newer players getting into this. Their army box sets are probably one of the best deals I've seen out there, and I've played a lot of different game systems.
Buying things individually. Oh yeah, definitely.
So they used to have a build an army option way back when I first got started, where you could go in and select and build. Yeah, I'm an old timer. And it was great, and I did away with it. And at first, I'm like, why would you get rid of that? That was such a really cool option. You go and you pick your headquarters, and you pick what infantry box you want, and you built your army, and it was awesome.
It sounds awesome.
It sounds awesome. But then they came out these army boxes, and I started looking at it going, well, wait a minute. Okay, as a new player, if I'm getting in and I have to go in and build my force, but I've never played a game and I have no clue what is good.
That's how I was when I first started. I'm like, hey, Justin, where do I start with this?
You really got to start.
That's the main thing that new players are going to look at this and they're going to be overwhelmed. Like, first of all, I need to pick a faction. Who am I going to play? Well, I don't even know what these guys are good at, or what these guys are good
Yep.
at, or what's my play style, or where do I start?
Yeah.
Where do you start?
Exactly. And so once you figure out what nation you want to get, you grab one of these army box sets, and they give you the basic foundation of what that army is going to be. So you don't have to go in there
It's
and
almost
build.
a complete army in a box, just about to start off. I started off with the U.S. starter set, and I started off small like that, and it was enough to play about 700.
Yeah, and most box sets, I think, depending how you build them,
I'm
are
gonna say-
usually good for 750 on the low end. Most of them are around 1,000 points.
Yeah, I
up
would
to
say it was a good
1250.
solid. I could make good solid 750 points with it, which is a nice. Honestly, if someone's going to ask me, what point value game should I begin this? And we didn't really talk about points and how much points and how many points different things cost and stuff. But I think at 500 points, you're kind of just. You get infantry. You're just dipping your toes in. You're not really getting a full understanding of how all these weapons interact with each other and different things like that. And at 750 points, I think it starts to shine. I really do. I think 750 is a great place for people to start. Would you agree with that?
I think so. Yeah, I usually do demos at 500 just to give them a taste, but 750 you can put some small
My demo was
vehicles.
500, and that was enough to draw me in.
You can put some small vehicles at 750.
Yeah, and like an armored car, add an armored car in so you can see how support vehicles work, different things like that. And it really starts to shine about 750.
And that's where these army box sets are amazing.
Yep.
That's where I usually start when I'm getting new people
great place
into
to
it.
start.
Is what nation you want to play?
Yep.
Okay, let's grab one of these army box sets because they're normally anywhere from $120 to $150.
Right.
But they're
you're
going to give
getting
you
a lot of product in
1,000,
there
probably
for that.
anywhere from 750 to 1250 in points, depending how you build
Right.
it. That's insane because that's all you need for an army.
Pretty
the
much.
largest tournaments you go to are 1250.
Yeah,
So you
his-
can buy one.
ours
Yeah,
was
you could
1250.
buy one of those
Oh my
box
gosh,
sets.
This and this and this. Yeah.
You can-
3 of these. And
Yeah, yeah, enough
How
stuff.
many tanks can I take? No.
You could buy one of those box sets and really never need to buy another model again if you don't want to. And for that price point for somebody new getting in, that is awesome. Again, we're not. This video isn't to bash other game systems.
No, not
But I
at
know
all.
other game systems that you're going to spend that amount of money on and have half an army if you're lucky.
Not even
If you're
comparable,
lucky.
some of them, to the value of this. If you
Right.
do this, if you get into this game correctly and buy starter sets and stuff, there's very few games that I've played, and I've played a lot of tabletop.
Yeah.
A lot of miniatures games. And this is one of the cheaper ones to get into, really.
Yep,
And
and
it's
then-
one of the easier ones to paint too if
Yeah,
you want to get
yeah.
started because everything's green.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly though, it depends how historically accurate you're interested in being with your models and things like that, because you can really, some people really, my stuff's, I try to,
Stuff's pretty stinking good.
I have to, somewhere in the middle, but
Yeah.
painting wise, they're a lot easier to
pretty
paint
easy.
than a lot of
And the nice
things.
thing is, if you want to get historical, you just look at what the colors they were and use them. But so the next point, talking with the Army box sets, that kind of feeds into it is their plastic kits. Because the cool thing with the Army box set is, you buy that, and you open up, and you go, okay, here's my army.
Yep.
The box gives a suggestion of how to build it.
Yeah.
But when you're buying those box sets, you're still buying. All it's coming with is telling you have enough models in that box to make this many models.
Right.
Their plastic sprues, their plastic kits are so customizable
They are.
that you can buy that box and then go, okay, I want this guy to be an LT. I want this guy to be an NCO. I want an NCO kneeling. I want him with a cool pose with this gun.
Right.
All their, some depending on the nation,
Yes.
their weapons are separate, their arms are
Yes.
separate, their heads are separate, their
And that's-
torso and legs are usually together.
One place, I don't want to cut you off,
Yeah.
but before we talk about anything else, this is one place where I struggled as a brand new player to this game. I opened up the starter set, and I'm like, which guns are which?
Yeah.
What am I allowed to have in my squads? Because once you build these figures, you could say, okay, this guy has a rifle instead of this. It has this instead of the BAR. But once you put a BAR on a guy, he has a BAR. It's just one example. But I opened up the box and I'm like, this is a little overwhelming. I didn't know how to build my
It is
squads.
a little daunting.
I didn't know how
Yeah.
many guns I could have, and I started sitting down. Like I called him. I'm like, where do I find all this? And
It's daunting in that aspect
It
of it
is.
because it'd be
That's
great to
one-
open up and say, hey, I have this many rifles
Yeah.
and build. Now
Yeah.
I know what I need to build. So it is a little daunting in the new player aspect. I always tell people, figure out how you want to, what you build you want to do.
That's the main thing.
And
It's
then go,
difficult.
okay, well now I need to build this many rifles. I need to build this many BARs, this many SMGs.
As a brand new player, you're not going to have any idea really
Right.
until you sit down with a squad builder of some sort and try to figure out what am I allowed to have in these squads, because you can't just run, oh, I want to put, all these BARs in this squad and have a full. Well, you can. You can
you're
have,
gonna build 20
depending
BARs
on
'cause they're
how
cool.
early war, late war, depending on what is allowed in tournaments or where you're going to play with or whatever, you can only have certain amount of weapons, specific ones.
Yeah. So that could be a little daunting.
That's a little bit.
But the fact that you do have that customization is awesome, because
And they give you
you
so
don't
much
have to
extra
buy a blister that has a command pack. You
Right.
can take that plastic sprue and go, oh, it has an officer's head.
Yep.
It has, I want him with an SMG.
Yep.
I want him pointing and look thematic. I want him holding a map. And those sprues have all of that stuff.
They
so
do.
it is super customizable in that.
Yep.
It does take
A lot of
little
variety.
Yep, there's a little bit of learning curve, absolutely.
Learning curve is there, definitely.
But I think it's great. Now, the other side of that is they can be a little difficult to line up sometimes. The Soviets are known for that.
Yeah.
When you have separate arms on a sprue, a right and left arm on a sprue, and a weapon separate, now you have to try to put all those points together in a certain way so it matches.
Sometimes,
So some of my guys like to bring the rifle up into their hand. It's not quite in their hand yet because it's in mode because it just doesn't line up right.
Depending on how you want to deck your guys out,
And some of that is trimming stuff down, pinning stuff a certain way, learn those techniques that maybe a newer player doesn't quite have.
That's what I want to talk about too. A newer player is probably not going to have those skill set to be able to think, oh, well, maybe I need to trim, get a little cutters,
Yep.
If you
need to round this arm
maybe
down a little bit here at the shoulder.
a little sandpaper. But it does, some of them do, not all of them, obviously. Some of them go together just like that,
Yeah.
And other ones you're like, I can't get these arms.
And you can have two figures. You could use the same arms on two different guys, and just because of the way the torso is, one snaps together nicely, and the other you're like, I just did
like,
this.
what just happened? Yeah. And then sometimes, where'd that arm go? But there is some challenges with, but once you get into the flow of how you want to equip your squads and what weapons and arms and heads and everything, once you get into the flow, not too bad.
And you can have them completely decked out with ammo packs and
all kinds of stuff,
blankets and all whatever you want on them, or you can have them bare bones, and then you have that option because as a new player, like you talked about painting, if you're getting into tabletop gaming and this is your first game you've gotten into, you may be a little nervous about painting. We have a couple new guys who just started here that this is their first foray into tabletop gaming. Terrified of the aspect of painting. Well, then don't put on the pouches. Don't put on all the extra kit. The gas mask and all that stuff. And then it's just spray paint. It's a Joe. And you can go from there.
Yeah.
You could always add those packs later and paint them on, or as you get better. So it gives you those options to make fully customizable.
And basing is a whole other animal.
So plastic kits, I think they're awesome.
I like their plastic and I like their resin.
Yep.
Believe it or not, I think their resin. A lot of people are like resin.
Yeah.
But I mean, some of the resin tanks and stuff. I was like, wow, I only have to do boop boop boop, and a couple little bit of trimming where the molds were and stuff. Not too bad. Not like some of these other companies I'm not going to name. Where you get them, and you're like, what the heck is this supposed to be?
And it's solid resin. It's not brittle. You don't have to really worry about it.
They're solid. They are.
It's good resin. There are other resin companies out there. Since we're talking about just miniatures as a whole, Trenchworks, Blitzkrieg miniatures.
Yeah.
There's some other really nice resin tanks out there.
Yeah, I can't remember.
And this is where, through the magic of editing, I'm going to post a picture of the Trenchworks next to that, so you can see. Right here. So you'll get to see what like a Warlord Games looks like next to a Trenchworks, and you can see there's different stuff out there. But Warlord Games again does a very good job of producing good resin stuff out there.
When are we going to talk about the metal stuff?
That's next. That's next on my line. See, look right in front of metal products. So a lot of their companies. A lot of their product when they first got going are metal, and a lot of their secondary stuff that isn't as prominent, I guess you can say, is metal. All my fins are metal.
Yeah, I have some metal, not quite. I have some metal in mine.
As we talked about the amazing customization of plastic, my fins, I got to choose what head went on the models. I bought a box of 10, and they're equipped with the weapons, they're equipped with everything, and I just got to choose their heads. And obviously
extra large heads. Or they fit?
They're okay, yeah. I actually had to trim some the next time to get them.
Everybody knows those fins. No,
They got big heads. It's been killing all the Soviets.
I don't know. I have no problem sniping them. That's for sure.
So, the metal models again are decent. Honestly, if I had to choose between a one solid metal piece with the arms and weapons already on, or having to put together a bunch of little mini metal parts, I probably would want a solid metal chunk.
Yes.
Personally.
The less I have to glue metal pieces together,
Yeah.
the better the world is for everyone.
Absolutely.
It's metal pieces. Metal, I don't know how many people have worked with metal or not. You get used to it, but it's not the easiest to work with.
No, you get more flash with them, and it's just there's issues there.
There's a lot more trimming involved usually. The molds don't really, a lot of times, aren't perfect. Sometimes you need to pin things to get them to stick, depending on how big those pieces are that you're trying to get to stay in place.
And you can lose some detail with metal, which unfortunately Warlord does. Now, what I will say in a plus in their favor is a lot of the stuff that they have as old metal, they're looking at bringing in as a new plastic line. One of the things I'm really excited for is I'm in the process of building an Italian army. And the Italian metal figures aren't the greatest. They're good. But they're
for
not
metal.
Yeah, but they're not the
when we
greatest.
say good,
yes,
good for metal.
But they're gonna eventually replace that with
I
a plastic
say
line.
as much as they can with the metal and bring in more of that
and
easy to work with plastic and even some more resin stuff.
Yeah.
That'd be perfect.
And they're aware of that, and they're working that. One of the offshoot games that Warlord Games does, SPQR, they have this new resin stuff, and I this is where I sound dumb because I can't think of exactly what it is, but they're using this for some of their new models. Most of the time. But it's a
We'll
great.
do it again too.
It's a great. It's a great resin. It's like the stuff that
I'm not sure because I don't know. I know the game system,
like the
but
stuff
I don't
the Games
own that game
Workshop
system.
does, not the resin. The what's that stuff called? I can't think what it's called. I'll probably put it at the bottom here once I actually do the research.
We'll edit that in later.
So
Magic.
There's hope that they start to move some of that stuff into Warlord into Bolt Action itself. We'll see, but again, most of the metal that's out there isn't.
There's a lot to be desired.
Yeah, and it's
really
it's
does.
a very small percentage compared to their
thankfully,
plastic kits.
thankfully. Maybe I'm just totally
You're just
against metal.
scorned against metal?
I don't know, but every company I get metal stuff from, doesn't matter what game system, it comes and it's all.
It's very difficult.
And it's just a pain in the butt to work with. And it doesn't glue
Yeah,
very easily at all. And it's not good for. I don't think it's a good way for people to start if you're just starting with modeling and stuff like that. It's definitely not the place to start. If you buy this into this and everything, if you get a metal model or whatever, don't start with that one. Start with some of the plastic ones first and work your way up to the metal.
Metal is great at a 15 mil scale. It's a little difficult once you get in 28 mil and get the bigger stuff. I have some game systems that has some awesome 15 mil sculpts in metal. It's just tough at this.
It is. I think so too.
So let's talk about the supplements a little bit. So as we discussed, the Army books themselves, I don't really consider them supplements, but I'm talking more like the theater campaign books. As far as supplement books go. So they have, and you're going to hear theater and campaign kind of back and forth. In version 1, they called it one thing. In version 2, it's called another thing. But it's basically a theater book or a specific campaign book. Like they released, I guess it's been 2 years now, that for the 75th anniversary, they released a D-Day Normandy Invasion campaign book. Really great. They just released Stalingrad.
I would love to own the box.
It's gone.
But is it gone?
It's gone. Somebody bought it.
Someone took it.
Someone bought it.
We'll get them.
But Stalingrad, they just released Stalingrad.
That's a little more expensive.
Yeah.
It's a big box. Lots of stuff in
that box is huge. Yeah.
That box is huge. It's massive.
But the books are great because if you have Soviets and I have Germany, we want to play Stalingrad, we can get in there and they have some great specific scenarios, and they do a lot of research. Warlord does an amazing job of research. That
and
when
it's
you're
like,
playing,
hey, do you think that this might have happened?
Right? Yeah.
No, they know.
Yeah. Here's the book. Here's the history. Here's what happens, and they convert that really well into scenarios.
Yeah.
And then in the supplements, then they start to release some specific rules that played a part in that theater. Like for Stalingrad, they have rules on going into manhole covers and popping up into sewers and stuff because that happened. And so
thematic.
Yeah, and so they do a really good job of going, well,
in a game like this, you want thematic.
Yeah.
This
happened during this fight. How can we bring it in?
Obviously, this game, and don't get us wrong, this game isn't, it's not an exact, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's like replication.
Right, yeah, that's not the word I'm looking for. I can't think of it right now. But it's not, you're not going to sit down and play this and be like, this is exactly how battles were fought.
Right.
It's not going to be, the rules are a little,
they're a little loose because you can't have those scenarios and dice rolling plays into it.
Yeah,
you'll think of it in about.
I'll think of it later. We'll edit that into it, but
maybe
generous. No, probably not.
So yeah, supplement. I think the theater supplements are great.
They do add a lot of theme.
Another supplement, I guess. Form we can take here is there are other stuff like K47, Conflict 47.
Simulation.
Yeah,
it's not an exact.
This is where we get into fluff.
Yes, it's not an exact simulation of World War II fights.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not an exact simulation. It's not gonna. It's not. You're not. I mean, you're still playing a tabletop game.
You'd get
it. Yeah, but I mean, the theme helps a lot to really make it feel like more like a simulation, more like it's really happening. And this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go.
Good now?
Yeah.
You feel
I'm happy
better?
now.
All right. Conflict 47. So, obviously, we've talked about historical game system as bolt action is World War II. They have a supplement for Conflict 47, which is where we get into the fluff stuff of more of a sci-fi aspect. And I'm not going to do the whole fluff thing, but basically something happens during war, during nuclear testing that opens a rift in time, space, and all that stuff, and they start to get this technology information through. And it basically spins up the weapons war, race war, or weapons war in World War II.
That's 2021 is going to happen. Yeah, the way we're going.
Yeah, let's not go there. That's tonight. By the way, we're filming this on New Year's Eve, so if that happens tonight, you heard it first.
New Year's, everyone. Let's hope for a better one.
So when you're watching this in your bunker in the apocalypse in January, it's because he said it. But that gives people like who maybe aren't into the historical aspect that I can pull in some sci-fi people by putting down
same rule set almost.
Yeah, but so it's the same exact rule set. They've just added some rules to deal with fighting werewolves and fighting.
Keeps like here.
It's cool.
I'll show you sometime.
You can play this game system and you buy that book.
Yeah.
Now one rule book and you buy one unit that's considered a Conflict 47 unit. And now you're playing K47.
Yeah.
And it's almost the same rule set, and it's very easy to pull in those sci-fi people when they see.
I love sci-fi.
Let's bring them up, the Nazi zombies, or werewolves, or the Soviet bears, or really cool, fun stuff like that can pull them in.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've done a good job at that. Now that could use a bit of tweaking because that came out version 1. They haven't done a whole lot more with that, but they're talking and working with that and pulling some more stuff in. They've also expanded into Korea as a supplement.
Didn't know that.
It's still it's still the same exact
right now, same as you.
version 2 rule book, but they have a Korea supplement where they've now added some rules to deal with obviously some Korean War stuff. And the beautiful thing is,
my uncle fought in the Korean War.
Awesome. Well, there you go.
A great uncle.
And here's the beautiful thing: you play late war U.S.
Yes.
You now have a Korean War U.S. stuff because we're talking 10 years later. Uniform color may change a little bit, and some small stuff there, but really most of the weapon systems were still the same. Mm-hmm. Now you can take a. What do they have over there? They have a Sheridan or something over there. I forget what they have over there.
You're going to cost me more money.
But you can buy that supplement rule book, and they have a KPA, Korean People's Army, and they have a Chinese army and
KPA,
stuff that you can
Korean
do.
People Army.
That's what it was. Korean
I like that.
KPA.
KPA.
You're making me think twice about it. I'm looking over there.
It's like an IPA, but you don't drink them.
Just as bitter.
Maybe even more.
But
sorry.
Yeah,
back to
now you're playing Korea, and a lot of other historical game systems have focused on Vietnam, but I don't know too many in Korea. And again, because you're only talking a 10-year span, there's not a whole lot of tweaking that needs to be done there. So they've added the rule set. John Russell was one of the main guys who kind of played a big part in Korea supplement.
I'm impressed.
And they did
he's pulling out some info now.
John's an awesome guy. I don't think he'll ever come to watching this. I know he's on our Facebook page, but John,
maybe he will.
Shout out to you. But they did an amazing job of researching, and that book, you open it up, and let's be honest, Korea is probably one of the unspoken conflicts, and I don't want to put it that way and sound like I'm bashing it, but you don't really learn much about it. I can remember learning about
not at all.
Civil War, Revolutionary War, World War I, World War II,
Yeah,
Vietnam,
it's like the Korea War.
yeah,
Let's put it under here.
Yeah, you don't really hear much about it,
No.
and the fact that the research they did, and you can read this book and learn so much, and the diagrams and the history, it's amazing.
Now you make me want to get that right now.
Good, that's the point. That's the whole point of videos is to get more people to play.
Costing me more money right now, even in the video.
But that's a great. I consider that to be a supplement because it's still bolt action. It's just a tweak to the rules to be able to play now Korea.
Right.
So they do a great job on that as far as expanding it, so you don't ever really get too bored. I think with the options of what you can play.
I haven't gotten bored just playing U.S. and bolt action this whole time, and I played I don't know how many games. It's been quite a few now.
Quite a few,
even though I make rules mistakes constantly still.
So do I. I TO when I still make rules mistakes. What's my number one rule at a TO or a tournament when people say, "Hey, we're gonna have a question"? I tell them flip a coin because you'll get the exact same result as if I would have done it.
Yeah, I mean we do our best, but we play a lot of different game systems, and sometimes it's just like
they all merge together.
Which one is this for now? So it's we'll blame it on that.
Yeah.
Not that we're getting older and our minds don't work as well.
It's never that.
No.
So I think that covers supplements. I mean, let's talk a little bit on terrain.
Ooh, terrain. The stuff I hate to paint.
So terrain for this game system, again, Warlord Games realizes that 28 millimeter historical.
Do you have any terrain available to show anybody? Like what we use? Anything? Maybe we could have got some out.
And the magic of editing.
Oh, is that what you're going to do? Okay,
Yep.
I was going to go grab some of that. Wait, hold on a second.
The magic of editing.
No.
While people are hearing us talk and ramble, I'm going to be I'll be throwing stuff up.
Oh, is that what we're doing?
Stuff.
Okay, yeah, that's right. You did mention that before.
Dude, I don't want to crack too much glass of just having us sitting here for an hour talking.
Oh, boy. I'm entertained so far. I don't know about you. Okay.
So Warlord Games, again, realizes 28 millimeter historical. There's a lot of companies out there. And let's be honest, with any game system with terrain, you have people making homemade. You have... Really, it's... See, now I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but there's enough stuff out there in the market. Saturated. The market is saturated,
completely saturated
with what you can get. And so
you thought of that before I thought of simulation. That was faster than I thought of simulation. Yeah,
Coffee's kicking in.
It is. I'm working on mine. It's not doing it yet. Sorry.
So Warlord does have some plastic terrain kits that are nice terrain kits. The Ruin Hamlet box set you can buy is a great deal for what it is. They have walls, and they have some very basic stuff. But what they've since done, one of the companies that I really like and I use quite often, and Warlord has kind of paired with them a little bit, is Cyrissa Precision. They make MDF kits, really nice MDF kits, that you build and paint and as you want.
What's an MDF kit for people brand new that might not know what MDF means? That cut? Is it like laser cut? And
So it's like laser cut.
They're laser cut, kind of.
What's the MDF abbreviation? But it's basically like a thinner or like a thicker cardboard MDF.
Yeah.
It's a fiberboard type thing. That's laser cut, and it comes in a flat kit, and you build it together,
and it's pretty quick.
Yeah, and again, I'm gonna have images right in here about now. But you can buy them off of Warlord Games because, again, they're partnered with them, or you can go to Cyrissa Precision, and they make Eastern Front, European. They make they have a great Pacific theater stuff, and they cover all different time frames. But there's great companies out there like that.
There's so many
there's
companies with terrain. You could literally, you could go on and on about companies.
And I can sit here and advertise a whole bunch. Foreground is awesome.
I'm not going to lie. I either build most of mine custom or I 3D print.
So that's the other point I was going to bring up is
that's the elephant in the room for now in hobby gaming is
20 for another 11 hours, 10 and a half hours.
Yeah.
To own a 3D printer, a basic Ender Pro.
I have an Ender 3 Pro, and
$250 by the time. Well, $225.
It's about $225, and then you buy some filament for a roll's like $20. $25 for the best stuff, because not all filaments equal. I don't think.
No.
They say tolerance and things, but we're not going to get too much into that here.
You can easily spit out terrain for that.
It takes a little while to print, and you got to. It takes printers aren't easy.
Right.
There's a lot of finagling. You have to constantly calibrate things and re-level things, and you have to be a little bit mechanically inclined, I think, or learn how to be mechanically inclined if you want to own one of these kind that we have.
But you can fill those gaps of what's not out there in the product market, or
But there's information galore.
You find plenty of websites of people that have 3D printers that sell.
I print all my stuff now. I don't have tons, but I have enough for a table or two, and that's all I need at my house. When I'm down here, that's all he has because he has all the good stuff.
Yeah, again,
all the good stuff.
And that's where, like, terrain-wise, I could speak for hours on it. I'm not going to, because as a TO, right now I have 7 complete tables. My goal eventually is to get to 10. And in those 7 tables, I have homemade, I have Cyrissa Precision, foreground, I have 3D printed stuff, I have Battlefront product, I have more, I've lost count. And so again, you can mix and match it. It all works the same.
I can't stress, though, a 3D printer is probably the best thing I've ever bought for hobby gaming.
It is.
Honestly. You can make, there's so many free files out there.
Yeah, I mean, but I've said it 100 times that, because 3D printing, I have one myself, it is my favorite and my most hated hobby.
It's a love and hate relationship, because when things start going wrong,
I've never
they go
loved
wrong.
And hated something so much in my life.
You've summed up my exact thoughts better than I could ever say.
I'm gonna offshoot here. I printed a really, because it's around Christmas time, a really cool, intricate snowflake.
Yeah,
with
that was
all
nice.
kinds of pattern, and it was beautiful, and it printed amazingly.
Tried it again, right?
No, I took that off the printer because I'm done printing them. I needed a 150 by 50 millimeter base for some Kings of War stuff. It's a rectangular flipping base that's 0.5 millimeters thick, 150 by 50. All it has to do is print a rectangle. Dude, it took me 5 times to get that thing to actually lay right.
What was it doing?
It was warping. The first layer wasn't going on.
See, with 3D printers, heats have to be right. Temperatures. Temperatures have to be right. The base has to be perfectly level.
Yeah, we could get a whole
There
are
are that many small nuances.
I've never loved
any little thing. Any little thing could throw them off.
Yeah,
and it's aggravating. When it's working, it's fantastic. You can pump out stuff like crazy. When it's not working, you want to be like, "Oh, where did I get this thing?"
Flip a table.
Yeah, love and hate. Definitely. But it's the best. Still, I'm gonna say it's the best thing I've ever bought for hobby gaming, because I never really had a lot of terrain before I bought one of these, and now I'm just like, ooh, it's just
So you could do quite a bit.
You can
with them.
You can keep it running constantly.
The cool thing is even if you don't own one, don't want to get into all that, there's so many people out there that do and sell them, that it has now brought down the market a little bit on cost value or price value on terrain, because you can buy cheaper 3D printed stuff.
And that's one, probably not for the companies. It's probably not a positive, but for the consumers. Yeah, I mean...
It is. And it's time versus value and all that stuff. But in the end, terrain makes this game. Having a beautiful table set up with lots of terrain, playable terrain, really makes the game
more thematic. It just really gets you,
pulls people in, it looks
pulls
good.
you right into that game. The better it looks, the more realistic it feels.
And there's plenty of companies out there. You can Google search 28 millimeter World War II terrain or 28 millimeter historical terrain.
This can be terrain. You don't have to play this game and enjoy this game. You don't need to start with terrain. You can build it, or you can just things.
And most unless you're at the point where you're part of a club or part of a group that's playing at somebody's house. Yeah. And if you're at that level, you guys have terrain. Most of your local, what do they call it? FLGS, your friendly local gaming stores have terrain. Like even here at the Cove, I have 4 totes of terrain that I keep here as a sarge that people.
That's very nice. So again, though, if you do use someone's terrain at your local family gaming store, please take care of it. If something gets broken, or you destroy something by accident or whatever, that's okay. Things happen. Let somebody know. Yeah, we had, he had some issues.
I had a tournament in October, and then I opened up for the game day next month, and I found all kinds of busted stuff. It happens.
It happens. It happens. We have glue, but just let people know so we can have a fix for the next time that somebody else wants to play with it. But most game stores or shops or people are very friendly, and if they have stuff that's available, you can say, "Hey guys, do you have anything we could use for terrain today? Do you mind? Or, is there? Don't be afraid to ask.
Yep.
A lot of them have stuff that's free to use for anyone.
Yep. So, I think that covers terrain. So overall, product line as far as the miniature supplement and terrain. Personally, I think out of all, last count was probably 27 different game systems I played, and I think that count has unfortunately risen.
Around there too. I don't even know. It's been
out of most of the game systems I play at this scale.
I've been around for a couple of years.
Skirmish games obviously not included, but this is probably one of the cheaper games it takes to get into.
It is.
That is Again,
I think
very
I have a
customizable.
total. Yeah, I'm sorry, I cut you off there. I think I have a total of, total. I'm talking with extra dice, my terrain, my paint, my basing materials, all my tanks I've bought. I have lots of different things. I might have like $300, $350 into a tops, but I mean, I have a lot of stuff for that. And I mean, another few other games that I know of, you're not even at $350. You're better lucky if you have half an army built. You know, like
I tell most people getting into it, your base cost is probably going to be around $200. By the time you buy a starter
realistic.
Box
For everything.
Yeah, starter box, a rule book,
Yep.
Your activation dice.
Yep.
You know, and
But you could do it cheaper. You could do it cheaper.
And
than
that's
that.
really saying, okay, do you have a tape measure? Do you have D6? That kind of stuff. Which, I mean, pop out your old Yahtzee board game and there's 5 dice in there for you. Like, there's plenty of ways.
This will be a game. This is one of those games where you probably want to get it and you just keep adding to it over the years and keep it forever. I know I do.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I'm never going to get rid of my stuff, so I take my time and try to base everything well and paint everything as well as I can and stuff. And you get better over time and learn different tricks and things online and everything like that. But it's not a throwaway game. Like some of these games, you buy into them and they keep changing things. That's one of the main things, main aspects of this game that I really, really like. They don't constantly change things and nerf armies. And now you can't have this, and now you can't have that. Now this change and that change, and well, I just paid $150 for these beautiful models, and I just throw them in the trash because a couple months later, because they nuked them or they nerfed them or whatever your terminology you want to use, that you can't. They're not really viable anymore, or you can't not allowed in tournaments or not this or that. This what you have is always going to be yours, and it's pretty much always going to be legal. Yeah. If they make any changes, it'll be small things in the rule books and stuff like that. Because you're not going to really be able to change too much about World War II armies.
You
and
can't
things.
change the fluff on.
No, you can't. There's no fluff.
Show.
Yeah, it's not fluff. It's historical based. Thing. So it's very much an investment. This game. If you're a lifelong gamer or have a play group or even 1 or 2 buddies that want to get involved with it, with you, it's more of a solid investment than a lot of other games that I've place my money into.
Yep. And again, the cool thing with it too is once you buy the miniatures, there are offshoot things you can do. Like I mentioned, Chain of Command. I can take my bolt action army and buy another rule book and play a totally different game system with the same miniatures. Yeah. The 28mm World War II. There's plenty of stuff out there. So overall cost investment, it's definitely going to. I feel it's definitely one of the better games.
Definitely, without a doubt.
So now the fun part that I thought we were going to talk on most of, but we've been rambling for a bit here. But let's talk a little bit about rules. Specifically, I don't want to get into a whole thing on it, but more of like the rules or the play styles that make the game unique, or what made it stand out to us. So we're not going to go. I don't want to go into all the rules specifically, but what are some of the things that jump out that really make this game stand above the rest?
Take it away. Go ahead. I've been taking all. He was supposed to lead here, and I don't know what happened. I don't know.
I just put a camera in front of Barry and say go. So I got some notes here, some things to point out. You can agree, disagree. Let me know some other things. So
I'll disagree.
Just because, even if you agree, you're going to disagree.
That's right.
So first thing we're going to talk about that makes this game, I think, extremely unique, and Warlord uses it in a couple different game systems that they have. But let's talk a little bit about their activation dice system.
Yes.
So, and just the order uniqueness that comes in that. So, game systems out there, you have a lot of games that will do you move a unit, I move a unit, back and forth, or you go, I go, where you're going to do everything with your army, whether it be move, shoot, charge, assault, whatever, and then now it's my turn, and I'm going to do all that stuff. This game uses a random activation by using activation dice.
I know it's going to be one of your favorite things about the game, isn't it? I'm guessing.
It's going to be up there. It's mixed in with some other things that make it in there. But one of the things I like is basically every single unit is going to have an activation dice, which is basically just a D6 dice with some orders on it. They go into a bag randomly.
Yes.
And you randomly reach in there and pull a die out.
And we usually take turns passing the bag back and forth.
And if it's one of yours, You're going to activate one of your units.
Each round.
Yep. Yeah. Like you said, round one.
One
he'll
person's
pull
not
dice.
always not that like per se someone would be cheating or anything. That's not the reason for it. It's just because it's it's some work. You're pulling the dice out of the bag and
It makes it fair.
It
across
evens
the
it. I
board.
mean, it gets people more interested and involved. So you're not just standing there.
And
like,
plus, you'll watch the battle
my turn,
report
yeah.
that Barry and I played, and that's the exact reason why you don't let one person pull all the dice, because all of his came out in the first of the rounds. Which is why I lost that game, but we'll talk about that.
That's exactly why I can't.
I think it was a tie. I don't
I was
remember
like,
at this
what?
point.
I was like, where's those orange dice?
Yeah.
Me.
He puts a little
Me
honey
again.
on the outside.
Oh,
so they
it's
stick
me
to his
again.
finger.
Yeah. No.
But you pull a die out. If it's one of yours, you're going to activate a unit that hasn't been activated. If it's one of your opponents, they'll do the same. It adds an entire another level of the game, in my opinion, because you'll be looking at the table and I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. You don't know when that dice is coming out, and you finally get dice, and you're like, yeah, it's one of mine. Now, what's the priority? What do I want to do? Because I can't guarantee that next dice is going to be mine. So you really have to think, and as you go, you can start to set something up, and your opponent will pull 2 or 3 of their dice, and now the plan changes, and it adds this entire other level of, instead of the you go, I
it
go,
does
where
almost kind of simulate the unknowns of war.
the chaoticness
of it on the battlefield. It does, and it does a good job of that. But I'm going to tell you why I like it, but I still have an issue with it in a minute. Let him finish.
But when you have a game system that it's a you go, I go, where I'm going to move everything, I'm going to shoot everything, and then I'm going to charge with everything and do the assault. Okay, now you go back and forth. You can pick a unit and completely wipe them out before they ever get a chance to do anything. So that really expensive thing on your opponent's table, point-wise, that does a whole lot of damage, I can focus everything at that and
My
get rid of
little
it before it does
Stewie.
anything. Yeah. Whereas this game is, you really have to pay attention and focus as what your priorities are. And as those dice come out of the bag, your priorities change.
They do. It does.
And so it adds a whole nother depth that I feel.
It does change your strategies an awful lot sometimes.
Right.
You're like, all I have to do is get that one dice next.
Yeah,
And then it doesn't happen. You're like, there goes everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
and you may be waiting on that dice because I want to shoot at this unit before it charges me. Well, he pulls one of his dice, and now that unit's done the charge. And so now my priority for my next dice changes because, well, that unit already activated. I don't have to worry about doing anything for the rest of this turn. I don't have to worry about that. Now I'm going to focus on this. And it completely... It changes your strategy per dice pool.
This is a game where you have to be on your toes, and you can't just say, okay, you can't just think to yourself, this is the exact way I'm going to do this round or this turn or whatever.
It is going to change.
It's just going to constantly throw curveballs at you.
Some game systems, your strategy changes per round because things happen when your opponent goes. This, it changes per dice pool.
Yeah, it does.
I really do think.
It does.
Now,
It does.
the negative of that is it does add a little more time to the game system of pulling dice, and because I don't know how many times we've sat there and we've stared and trying to figure out, like, you'll see in the video, where it's like, hey, oh yeah, hey, wait, I gotta pull dice. Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, we do have to.
It adds a little more. Yeah. It slows it down a little bit sometimes, but not. I don't think anything grand scale.
No.
We do a 12:50 game in 2.5 hours at the tournaments, and most people are done in plenty enough time.
Then other times we're sitting there and we're like both looking at each other like.
Yep. What are we
And
doing?
like, whoa, who's pulling a dice? Oh, it's you. Oh,
yeah, back
okay,
in front of me. Yeah. So that for me is the number one that stands out.
Okay.
And like I said, I love that system, the random activation. But I know you.
I like it. I don't love it. I like it for the same reason that you like it. It does change the whole aspect of every turn. It provides a lot more randomness as far as how you're going to approach your strategies, and that's also why I dislike it. Here it goes like this. I hate games where you activate everything at once, and then your opponent can't really do anything while you're doing anything, so you kind of just sit there and I shouldn't say I hate all games like that. I love you, Blood Bowl, but then there's games that you go back and forth, and then there's this game where it's random. You don't know. You're pulling out of a bag. This system is right below going back and forth, back and forth. I would rather see it back and forth, because then you could have a more complete strategy and picture in your head of how the timing of things that you want to do. Granted, as long as what he did in his previous turn didn't blow up what I just want to do my next turn. But when you're pulling randomly out of the bag and one person gets 3, 4, 5 turns in a row at a specific time of the game where things are very important for you and you're in dire need for just one dice, one activation, and they keep getting them over and over again, and now they just, destroyed quite a bit of your force. That's kind of aggravating and annoying sometimes. It doesn't usually happen. It's usually pretty random, but there's times where you could go 5, 6 dice in a row out of like a 9 dice pool, and it's aggravatingly random.
And I will say, to your point that when you're counting on that random activation dice, when you have one of those happen in a turn where your opponent pulls 4 or 5 of their dice at once.
Yeah.
I've seen people who are in the lead lose a game off of that lucky dice pull.
And most of the time it doesn't matter. It was just playing for fun. Right. But in tournaments, when you're like, really, as long as I need it was one activation and I couldn't get it 6 turns in a row, there goes everything. There, now you could say, well, if you were a good enough player, you wouldn't be in that position where that could happen. You should think about that ahead of time.
But, and to the point of that's the chaoticness of the battle. But it does when you're going, okay, you expect a little bit of that.
Sometimes it's a little more swingy. Swingy is the word I'm looking for that I would like.
I've seen some games.
That's the only issue I have with it. Otherwise, it's a pretty cool system. I like it. I like it enough to I don't really have an issue with it other than that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And then along with those activation dice, like I said, it's basically a D6 dice. There's 6 orders on that dice. That you then declare what you're doing and put it down. And there's some subcategories in each order. Yeah. Some of the orders I think that are really cool in this game system that you don't see maybe elsewhere as much as I'd like to. One of the mechanics I really like is ambush, especially in a historical type game where you may have a machine gun nest that's sitting there waiting, or
that's
or
really cool.
Like that,
with a machine gun sitting on ambush, just holding down an objective. Yep. I don't use machine gun teams. They're not that great.
We'll talk about that. I actually have that as a note.
Oh, I'm getting ahead of it.
He's on it.
Okay.
But I really like the ambush mechanic.
I'm staring at his paper. I'm taking all his info.
Quit cheating. Where's your own test?
I don't have anything. Mine's blank. It's all here, buddy.
As we can tell.
Unfortunately.
Simulation, right?
Or it should be here.
Or simulation.
Yeah, simulation.
So I love that. I love that mechanic. And they use it here. And especially again as Finns, I won't get into that whole thing, but you can use it really well with some of the rules. But I love that you can put a unit on ambush and have a reaction fire, so you can have that out of turn reactionary fire.
Which ones of the Finns do that really well?
Sissy.
Yeah, the sissy squads.
Yeah,
they are sissies. He cheats.
Only when you fire that.
He's like, I just fire with these. Oh, they're on ambush too.
Yeah. So
great.
I love that. I love that mechanic.
Thank you. May I have another?
The down mechanic is another one, which again,
I love the down mechanic. One of my favorites.
Yeah. It's great because it can be used as a negative, it can be used as a positive, it can be used as a reactionary. So there's different ways to use it.
Just makes your team makes that squad or whatever you put on very difficult to hit.
Yep.
So if you get yourself out in the open and something bad happens, you could be like, oh, I'm going to pull a dice in the bag and put them down. Now they're too more difficult to hit than they were before. Fantastic.
As any soldier who's been through combat can tell you that when you see a rifle being pointed at you, the first thing you're going to do is get as low and flat or behind something as you can. Yeah. And that's what down does in this. It gives you a chance to go, oh crap, I'm about to get shot at.
You get to go down.
And sometimes you're so focused on something you're doing, as in a unit already activated, you don't get to go down because you're already in the middle of something. You may not see that to react to it. So the down order, I think, is pretty amazing.
Yeah, sometimes you wish you didn't go down. You wish you didn't have to go down with them, because then once you go down, they can't do anything else. Right. They can't fire. They can't move around. They're stuck there, but they're very difficult to hit now. But it kind of takes them out of your fight if they were something that you were planning on using. And maybe shoot these guys over here, or maybe whatever.
As it's tough in any tabletop game where you're activating a unit at a time, we're simulating a fluid battle. A fluid battle of a lot of things going on at once. So if you take that time to go down. Yeah. You're taking that time to hit the ground, to find the cover, to do what you got to do. Well, there is some recoup time to get yourself back into fighting action. So, the game, with the activation, you've activated them for that turn by going down. It's already added that. So, I think they've done a really good job. Those are the two
Rally's cool,
orders.
too.
Rally's another cool one.
Rally's a cool
which,
we'll remove those pins.
Yep, which we're going to get into. Did I even talk about pinning system somewhere on here? You think
I talked about pinning a lot at the beginning, but
Yeah, I think we're going to talk
pinning
about
is
that
my
again.
favorite. Give me all your pins.
So we'll talk about the next because it
Yeah.
kind of plays into the whole rally thing of you can take that time with that unit that it's not going to do anything. So you can take that turn to get a breath for your NCO to either give words of encouragement or smack somebody upside the head and do what he needs to do to get them going.
Yeah.
So the rally system's good. So I think
Get over there, do something.
the 6 orders and all the sub orders you can do with those, I
Yeah.
think gives you enough uniqueness with the game and the units.
Oh, there's a
that
lot
you
of
can
options
actually
you can
do
do on
some
the
stuff.
table. There's a lot of options, and it's pretty much open all the time for you. There's so many different things you can do.
Absolutely. So since you brought it up, let's talk about the pinning a little bit. The pinning mechanics of this game system.
You want me to talk about it again?
It's your
Didn't
baby.
I talk about pins enough? Pins, when you fire at something and you do well enough to hit that thing that you're firing at. See, there's hitting and killing in this game. Two separate entities. First, you fire to see if you actually hit, taking into account ranges, obstructions, terrain, all kinds of stuff like that. But it's not really difficult to figure it out. It's just modifiers. Very simple D6 rolls. And if you hit what you're shooting at, even if you don't kill anything, if you hit them, they get a little panicked and scared, and they take a pin. And pins cause them to shoot worse, fail orders easier. They're just negative bonuses. Is a negative bonus a thing?
Yeah.
But they're negatives. So pins are fantastic. They stack. So 2 pins means you're 2 less likely to hit me when you shoot, 2 less likely to pass that test that you have to make, that
The order test.
order test. Sorry. So yeah, pins are fantastic, and it's a way of keeping different things on the table locked down in places. They try and it kind of slows your opponent down. Now they don't get as good as shots when they're pinned. They don't. They might fail their order tests, which really can be a disaster sometimes. When you're really relying on them to function, and they just stand there and go, huh? What do you say?
Yeah.
So they don't take their order, different things like that. So without going too much more into the pinning, I don't want to beat a dead horse, it's fantastic because you don't have to kill things in this game to win or do well. You just have to spread your pins out. Maybe you want to put maybe just keep firing at one unit if they scare you or whatever, it's a big unit or something. Just keep them pinned down. Now they're kind of almost useless until they rally. So they're taking a whole round to rally. So there's only usually 6 rounds in a game. Pins are great. They're fantastic, and they put a whole other level of strategy into this game, and I love them. Love them.
Yeah. So I think the thing with it is when we talk about hit and casualties is scoring hits doesn't necessarily mean that round impacted with a person. It means that the rounds are close enough to that unit that you're suppressing them. You're putting hits on them. You're putting rounds down range at that enemy force.
Right.
So, and I think because a lot of people think hit of if I shot the guy, it should have already casualty.
Yeah.
No,
Should've
it's
explained that.
no, that's fine, and that's why
Yeah.
I'm just thinking like how I do it because you have game systems that have you score to hit, you score to do a casualty, you score to check their armor safe. Well, this game is your fire accurate enough that it's hitting them or suppressing around them?
Right.
If you're
Is it
scoring,
close enough
right? If
to
you're
cause
scoring a hit,
something.
if you got a round whistling by you, and the sound of incoming rounds is something you never forget. You're going to get a pin on you in this game system, which is basically like he said. They're stackable pins. You have rounds coming in you. The easiest way I describe it is it's combat fatigue.
Yeah.
You're getting shot at. You're
That's a good way to explain it.
It's
fear.
Right. Fear coming in. You're constant rounds going through you. Put
unknown,
stress on your body mentally.
Stress.
Yeah. So
some games call it stress.
Right.
Some other games that use it. There's a few. Yeah.
So you're putting those pins on a unit.
Yep.
So those pins stack. So obviously you're wearing down that unit's combat effectiveness.
Yep.
So when you have a pin on you and you want to activate that unit, you have to take a morale check minus the negative pins on them because it's how well
it's a
are they.
simple 2 dice roll.
Yeah. How well are they reacting to their NCO's orders while taking that incoming fire?
If they're veterans, you need to roll usually a 10 or less
Yep.
to do an order check. two pins would be an 8 or less
An 8 or
now that
less,
you would
yeah.
have to roll. Otherwise, they're just going to go down.
Yep. And if you
and
fail,
not do
you're
what they
going
need.
down because
Yep.
that unit's too
Just a quick
weary to
example.
deal with.
Yep.
With
They can't.
you know.
They're too scared. They're too
Right.
wary. They're too upset.
Or if
Whatever,
you
they just
pass
drop.
that,
Yep.
you get rid of one pin.
pin, yep.
You still have pins
One at
on
a
it
time.
because they're starting to regroup themselves a little bit. They're starting to deal with what
Unless
they
you
need to
rally.
deal with.
If you rally, that's all you do for the turn, and then you remove as many pins as you can roll well enough to remove them.
So the pinning mechanics in
They're
this
gone.
game is amazing
It is.
because other game systems you can
good.
play where unless you kill that unit, you can have a squad of 10 guys and they're insane in combat and you kill 9 of them. Well, that one guy gets into combat and they can still wreck units.
Yeah.
Well, this game, you don't have to kill out units. You can pin a unit enough that you don't have to worry about it. Or even if you don't pin out a unit, which is pins equal to its morale value, if you don't pin out that unit, you're still making them less effective at shooting. Or you're making your opponent take a turn to rally that unit so they can do something, so it gives you a breather. So pinning is a huge mechanic in this game because you can win.
It's the meat of this game, I think.
Right.
Honestly,
Honestly,
that's where
yeah,
that's
that's
where that's
probably-
where that's where most of your wins and losses are going to come from. What did your opponent? What was your opponent able to pin down on your side better than you were to them? Because a lot of times you'll roll well enough to pin, but you're not killing things, and you're not really taking models off the table, but you don't necessarily need to.
Right, and here's the
win.
thing. I mean, so it's 2d6 for an order check. If you're a veteran with morale of 10, you have 1 pin on you. You only need a 9 or less.
9 or less.
Doesn't sound that big of a deal, but you're forcing your opponent to roll.
Yep.
And probably, I think in our battle report and other battle reports we'll post, you'll see where forcing that roll can make somebody roll an 11 or 12. It happens.
You'll see us moving things too with pins on before and doing activations before we
There's that
get
too.
before we remember
Yeah.
to roll for the check.
But like
did
anytime you can cause your opponent to roll dice that's going to be a negative to them, it's a big deal and you want to do it. So pins are awesome in this game system. I love the fact that I don't have to just worry about killing things. I can add combat fatigue to my
I
opponent.
mean, shooting things dead's fun too in this game, but
Absolutely. But pins are pretty insane.
Pins are pretty.
So next is briefly talk about army special rules. So you have, when you pick an army, and you pick a nation, and you're playing that nation, they usually have 2 to 4 special rules that apply to that nation. For example, he talked about running and gunning with the U.S.
They don't get a negative modifier.
Normally,
for
when you
moving and
move,
shooting.
normally when you move and shoot, it's a -1 modifier.
As long as they have rifles.
The U.S. rifles,
Right.
because of having the M1 Garand and because the training doctrine of the U.S. was constantly to move and shoot, constantly be on the move, they negate that penalty. They don't take that penalty. They also have one for calling in airstrikes.
Yes, airstrikes.
Because
They can do 2.
Yep, they can do two games that
I
I've
don't
just
use
won a game.
airstrikes in my.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other story.
They're hit or
but the rule,
miss.
the special rules, in my opinion, do a very good job of giving you the feel of how that nation would have
Again,
fought.
more theme. More theme is always good.
It adds theme to it. So
does.
for the Germans, one of the big things they do is machine guns, light machine gun, medium machine gun, or
Extra
heavy
shot.
machine gun. Even their vehicles will always get one extra shot.
An extra shot. Doesn't sound like a
for
lot
machine
over the
gun.
course of a game, and if you have enough fire,
Instead of an LMG
it makes
firing,
a big difference.
Yeah, instead of an LMG firing 4 shots,
Yeah.
it gets 5, and so
Yeah.
on and so forth. That's a big deal because again, the Germans had trained to push their machine guns to the limit to be able to train, put as much firepower down as possible. So it gives you that feel.
Yep.
The Soviets, they get a free, inexperienced squad because
Yeah.
they were known to just put bodies out there.
British get a free
Free artillery observer.
observer.
Because they were
It's a
very
free
good at
shot
calling in
from-
artillery.
If you don't know,
Yep.
the observers, they give you a free shot pretty early on.
Yep.
You can try right off the bat,
It-
and it'll drop.
Yeah.
You know,
The Finns
wherever kind of in
Yeah.
the area vicinity you're supposed to, unless it backfires and
Which happens.
falls on your own stuff. That's fun.
The Finns, we talked about the Sissy squad firing from ambush. I get a plus bonus on my shooting, so instead of needing a 3 to hit, I get to start on a 2 to hit. Because again, the Finns were very good at guerrilla warfare of getting in there and splitting up large forces and hitting and falling back. So I think those special.
It
A
just
lot of
adds
people-
a lot of flavor,
yeah,
a lot
they're-
of theme. It really makes the game special.
I think some people that I've talked to, and I agree with this to an extent, can say that this game can seem a little too vanilla sometimes. That if you have a German infantry squad and a U.S. infantry squad, It's the same thing. It shows with rifles. But I think then where the nation special rules come into play make them feel more like, okay, yeah, I am playing U.S., I am playing German.
It does shine then, yeah.
And it gives you that extra.
That gives it that separation from being more vanilla. Yep.
So I think, again, most game systems have something specific to an army that they're good or something, but I think they do a very good job with 3 or 4 basic rules that kind of give you that feel for the armies. Along with that, one of the things I love about this game system, we talked earlier about new people getting into play.
Yeah.
Special rules in this game system are across the board.
Yeah.
For example, and I have written down here fanatics. There's a special rule in a game called fanatics that when they get into combat, if you're fanatic, you're going to keep fighting in that combat. Yep. And it's a little more intense than that, but I'm not.
So the terminology is what he's talking about. Yeah. And,
like your special rules for like...
I don't have any...
Well, your special rules for like assault. Some weapons give you the assault special rule. What I love is we can be playing a game and he can say, hey, this unit has the assault special rule. And I know what that special rule is.
Or this thing is vulnerable. Just keywords.
Yep.
Keywords that are the same across the board that make it easy to understand.
And he can say that unit has assault.
Yeah.
And I know what he means because I have units that have assault. Again, there's other game systems out there where you have to know all 20
His
armies.
Unit has 10 things different.
Yeah, they have some special thing that's
like
100% specific to them and have some special name for it.
And there's no specifics in
And you don't know what, unless you have all army books for every single army out there and you've read them and studied them, you don't know what your opponent's capable of doing. Yep. This is very simple. And again, some people use that as a counterpoint of, well, that makes it kind of because it's all the same. I don't personally feel that way. It streamlines it. Because once you learn what fanatic does, once you learn what vulnerable means, your opponent goes down and says, hey, this unit has this special rule, this unit has this rule. Got it.
Exceptional shot.
Yep, exceptional, and you know what you're playing.
Yep, you know what it is.
So
it's the same for everyone.
Yep, I love the fact that it's the same across the board. It makes it streamlined, like you said, and easy. One of the other things I have written down here is the base number you need for hitting is across the board, and that experience levels determine your skill levels. So what that means is, again, you don't have to sit and figure out what weapon systems start at what base or the old crazy GW, the old GW charts of this plus skill plus this to hit this. It's simple. Yep. You always need a 3 to start. Then you add your modifiers.
Oh, is there soft cover in between us? Oh, well, now it's a 4 to hit instead of a 3. Oh, is there hard cover for you in there? Now it's 5.
Yep. So it's really easy. I mean, for as long as I've been playing,
simple.
You'll always hear me in games go, okay, so base 3 to hit. Now add long range. You moved. Add this. Add that. Okay, now I need this.
Yet sometimes we'll sit there and be like, simple math. What was that again?
Yeah.
It's a 3.
There are those times too.
Oh, sometimes, but most
it's
of the time it's simple.
It's easier because it is.
Because everybody's firing off a base 3.
Yep.
Well, except for his.
Yeah, well, there's, again, special rules. But it's very easy. But again, you go, okay, well, it's 3s to hit, but now they have this special rule, so now it's a 2 to hit, so now they are long range, so it's back to 3 to hit.
Everything's based off a 3 to hit, pretty much.
It rolls really easy.
And then you just factor everything in.
Exactly. Yep. Simple. And the other side of that then is dealing with the same thing with experience levels. You have 3 experience levels: inexperienced, regular, or vet. 8, 9, or 10 for morale. That's their skill level. So when it comes to passing a morale check, it's the same across the board.
Can I talk about the lack of defense dice in this game?
Sure.
I love that there's no defense dice in this game. I get so sick of, okay, you roll really well. Oh my gosh, look at all those hits. How many you get defensive dice now because there's bullets coming at you.
You get a save.
How are you doing this? Right. Now they just rolled. I didn't hit with one because they rolled all shields or all misses or whatever is on their defensive dice. There's no defensive dice in this game, and I'm going to tell you why it makes this game so good. It's because now it really matters what you're hiding behind, how you utilize the terrain, how you utilize your special rules, the way your army works together, your synergies, all that stuff. Because you get hit, you get pinned, and if they roll well enough, you did.
Right.
So that's really adds into the gameplay for me. Just knowing that I don't have any defensive dice, so I got to really be careful of how I do things.
Yeah, because no matter how well your opponent shot, you have those defense. You're counting on the fact, I need 2 up saves. Easy.
And there they are. I rolled 2 crits.
Yep.
Oh, negate everything.
Yep.
So,
and and the other thing too is it streamlines the fact that I've played other game systems and played other games where I rolled a hit and we're trying to speed things up because someone's got to go at 4 o'clock.
I dodged it.
And I rolled a hit. I rolled the wound. Okay, I did this many.
Oh no.
And now you're waiting for your opponent to go, oh, wait, sorry. I was messing with my phone.
Armor check.
Let me get my dice together. Let me roll this. It just streamlines it real quick. I can roll and go, well, I scored 4 hits.
It just
I killed 2 guys.
It just plays fast and streamlined. And
I think that's a good point.
That makes this game even better than almost... If you haven't noticed already, I love this game. This is my favorite tabletop game I've ever played, and I play lots.
Yeah.
This is my favorite, and there's so many reasons why, and that's just one of them right there.
And I think finally the last point for me that I want to talk about, and I've already briefly talked about this, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, is there's different play styles and different ways to play this game. You have K47, you have Korea that we talked about that are supplements off of this that you can still play bolt action, play differently. There's the Tank Wars supplement, which is, this game is basically infantry based with infantry platoons, but you can play with tank platoons and play Tank Wars.
I didn't get a chance to do that yet. Every time I wanted to, something.
Yep, and they have,
unfortunately,
rough
year this year.
Yeah, they have a campaign system for Tank Wars, and so you can play all tanks if you want to play. They have a skirmish-based rule set. They have a skirmish-based rule set that instead of playing on 6x4 as a platoon, you're playing on a 3x3 or a 2x2 even, with 5 models as a squad, and they act individually.
Yeah, that's cool.
So you can play it as a beer and pretzel.
Yep.
So it has a lot of different ways and options
flexible
to play.
Game system. Yep.
Yeah, well, I don't think you can ever really get bored because we can say, oh, we're
there's so many different ways
to
play it. Yep. So many different things. As long as you have someone that has enough stuff to play or that wants to play it that way or wants to try different things, you could just keep changing up the way you play the game, and it's great.
Absolutely. There's lots of different ways.
Yeah.
All right. So finally, the last thing to talk about. Let's end on a negative Nancy note here, but no, try not to. Things that we feel could be better with the game system or product. Obviously, any game system, there's always some room for tweaking and improvement. So this part, we'll talk a little bit about some things we would like to maybe see. Not super negative things, but maybe things we would like to see them tweak a little bit.
Ooh, this is going to be tough because I love this game.
Yeah, I know. And honestly, this is probably going to be the shortest segment because I truthfully don't have a whole lot here. The one thing I will say is, as we discussed, version 2 has been around since basically the fall of 2016. I don't think we need a version 3. I truly don't.
No, I don't either.
I think we need maybe a 2.5. I think maybe...
I don't know if we need that.
No?
You think?
I would like to say, and it's
only to address certain weapons.
Yes, and that's why I don't think there needs to be a full rules rewrite. I think there needs to be, and one of the things that we didn't really discuss that they do Warlord does very well is every quarter they put out an FAQ and errata.
Yeah.
And so what they do is every quarter they put out here's our FAQs, here's frequently asked questions, and here's some erratas and some changes. Mm-hmm. And what I love that they do is it's not, okay, here's the FAQ for the quarter, and now you have a binder full of all of these. What they do is they add to last quarter's FAQ. Mm-hmm. The new stuff is in green. The stuff carried over from the last FAQ is still on that in black. So all you have to do is print a new one, and you have a complete FAQ and errata combined from all the other ones. I think that is awesome because I've had to carry around binders of erratas and books and updates and all that.
Yeah.
So they do a very good job of that. But those aren't changing rules really so much as just this was misprinted. We're going to clear this up a little bit. Mm-hmm. There are certain tweaks that I would like to see. One of the biggest things you hear in the bolt action community, and you already said it, which is perfect, is machine guns, medium machine guns.
Oh yes.
Most bolt action players feel that they are not as effective as they should be.
They're disappointing, I think.
Yes, they're
at best.
5 shots sounds great, but if you don't hit and they have all the modifiers, which is understandable, but if they don't hit, they don't do anything, or worse, they're going to put 1 pin on you. If I have a couple rifles popping shots at me, or I have a machine gun laying down some pretty heavy suppressive fire, that's 2 different things.
Yeah.
There's talk that people would like to see maybe it automatically puts 1 pin even if it misses, and then puts another pin if it scores a hit. I've heard people why not do D3 pins? I think that they could tweak them a little bit.
I think they need at least one more shot in D3 pins.
Yeah. I mean, especially one of the
In my very limited knowledge.
yeah, one of the special rules
How games operate. But
one of the special rules we talked were like our nation rules that we didn't really talk about was usually you have one medium machine or one medium machine gun slot. And you can take one. U.S. can take up to 3.
We can.
And one of them can be a heavy machine gun. You usually don't see any U.S. players take advantage of that, or even take one, because they're not that effective. And at 65
what's
points,
the U.S.'s special rule right off the bat? Running and gunning.
Right.
Running and gunning. Well, machine gun teams are clunky to begin with, and now why would I want them on my U.S. team?
And a medium machine gun at 65 points as a vet, if you're going to take 2 of them, now granted, when we talk about the ambush special rule, and you can put them down for a good lane of fire, and you have 2 medium machine guns covering an objective.
They're fun like that. They're fun.
Right.
That doesn't mean they're
But if you up the
dangerous or useful.
if you up the pinning to them a little bit,
Then
and I had 10 medium machine gun shots between 2 of them covering an objective on ambush, doing 2 possible D3 pins.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
now
gonna
it changes
think twice
everything.
about it.
Now it changes everything
Those
about the
machine
way
gun
I'm going
nests
to build my
becomes
army.
important. So they're
They're
small.
clunky.
There's small tweaking like that. Medium machine guns I'd like to see
we
change.
didn't talk much about something, and we probably should have a little bit more. What are you actually trying to accomplish in this game besides just killing each other or pinning each other? This game is really based upon a lot of different scenarios. There's lots of different scenarios you can play. Most of them require you holding more objective tokens than your opponent at the end of the game, or possibly at certain times, maybe the end of rounds, or maybe having so many of your squads over on their side and them on yours. There's points you can get for all different kinds of stuff. We really should have talked about that a little more. I don't think we touched upon that at all.
No, not really.
And that's really what the game's all about. So it's not just about killing each other and pinning each other. It's about holding these strategic positions down at certain times of the game.
Well, since you brought that up real quick, I'm going to jump in.
Yeah.
So back talking about the rule book and talking about missions. In the rule book, they give you 12 missions right off the bat. You
Yes.
have 6
Yeah.
regular and then 6 what
I
they
can't
call
believe
attacker
we
and
didn't talk
defenders.
about that early on.
So for a standard rule book,
Maybe
they give you
get this
12
earlier.
missions right off the
Yeah.
bat. I think that's pretty awesome
Yeah.
that they give you 12. And like you said, you can play a game that's a kill-all. You can play a game
Yeah,
that's
you can.
objective-based. You can play a breakthrough
Yeah.
game. There's a lot of... And the attacker defenders give you some really
Yeah.
cool scenarios of like being surrounded. And they do a really good job. And then all the supplement books
Yeah.
all have specific scenarios and
But
missions
very
for them.
few scenarios are just kill them all. You know, there's usually some other kind of objective to hold, or something to grab, or something to run off the edge of the table with, or whatever. So you want mobile things. You want to be able to, and that's why I love the U.S., because you're constantly running and gunning. So now I can hold objectives, grab objectives, run around, and not lose any firepower while I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now the machine guns, they don't get that, and they're clunky, and they just sit there and they're like, I'm going to be in ambush until you go ahead and move, and then I'm going to get 5 shots, and you know.
Yeah, and it's tough. But
And it
as
doesn't
a
really
US
play
player,
into a lot of.
as a U.S.
Yeah.
player, if you had 1 or 2 sitting down a lane of fire covering an objective until you could get to
Yeah.
it, but they did more pinning, would you play them more often?
Yes.
Do you think?
I think I just said before, I would
Yeah,
definitely.
because I think,
if
again,
they did D3 pins and maybe 6 shots instead of 5 shots, like
'Cause
the
if you had 2 of them-
like the Soviet, like the
The Germans.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. 'Cause if you had 2 of them sitting covering an
Yeah.
objective that gave ambush and suppressive fire while you were able to move up on it to keep
Oh.
your opponent off of it,
That'd
be huge.
I would definitely.
because now
run
you only need
MMG teams.
Now you
yes.
only need a smaller infantry squad
Yes.
to get up to that.
Yes.
You don't have to send your big 12-man because you've got not
Yep,
suppressive
and
fire.
unfortunately, right now they just don't make my armies because they're too clunky. They're
Yep.
too slow. They don't do enough. There's really no need. I can do way more with a unit, a small unit, even a small, very small unit of infantry. I can do more with than I can ever do with an MMG team. So
I think
I think a change has to
that's the
happen there.
one thing that I see. I shouldn't say that the one thing. There's a lot of things people talk about, but that's the big thing I always hear in the bolt action community is the machine gun rules. I personally sat and kind of tried to think of other rule systems, and I'm sure there's other rules out there or things that I would like to see tweaked that I really couldn't think of at the moment.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think they need to revamp rules. I talked briefly about how I got started in bolt action because I came over from Flames of War. Flames of War did a complete reboot on their rule set from version 3 to version 4.
Yeah.
and I stepped away from Flames of War for a while. Now, version 4 wasn't as bad as I originally thought it was, and maybe I'll do a sit and talk eventually on that and discuss that whole thing. But I would hate to see a game that honestly I really like and enjoy playing. I'd hate to see them tweak it too far. I don't think they need to revamp rules. I think they need to tweak that. I think they need to go through and look at...
This doesn't need a bunch of work by any means.
I think they need to go through and tighten up army books and theater books. Because some of the army books came out when version 1 came out and hadn't really been tweaked a whole lot since version 2. And same thing with the theater books. Is we talked about that supplement creep. I think going back... What I'd love to see, and I'm going to steal something from... I'm actually going to promote them, so... Snafu Podcast. I don't know if any of you guys out there have heard of them. If you listen to podcasts, listen to Snafu. SNAFU. They're out of the Midwest. They're a great group of guys. They do an amazing job with podcasting. They run some pretty awesome tournaments out Midwest. That's actually on my bucket list, is to go to one of their events one day. They talk a little bit about how I talked earlier about how the supplement books sometimes don't say if you can take it in a generic list or not. And as a TO, I have had many conversations with people in the last tournament I just ran of them sending me their list and saying, sorry, you can't take that unit. Oh, well, why not? Well, because it doesn't specifically say it counts as a generic unit. I would love to see them come out with a supplement and say, here is everything that you can play.
I was just going to say the same exact thing for your force selection. They need to do a better job with their force selection, the streamlining of the force selection, and how to build your armies depending on what you want to do.
Warlord is talking about coming out with, and they've talked about it for a while, and they're very close to coming out with a set rules packet for tournaments for TOs. So it's the same across the board. And one of the things they've talked about is the fact that they're only going to allow generic reinforced platoons. Okay, so what does that mean? Instead of having to look at the fine print in every little supplement, why not come out with a book and say, here's everything that's good to be used? Whether it be a PDF, whether it be a supplement, whether it be whatever. I think that would be amazing. And that would
streamline and make things so much easier, especially for people who are newer to games like this. They can just look at, here's how you build your armies, your forces, depending on what you want from it and what you want to do with it. You want to go to a tournament? Well, this is the pretty much the desired way to build. Do you want to play this maybe this way? This is how you do it. But it's all here.
Because one of the things we didn't talk about, and you talked a little bit about army building forces.
Yes.
There's a great website out there called easyarmy.com.
That's what we...
almost everybody uses. Battlescribe, I believe, has this, but it's not as good as Easy Army, to be personal.
Really, it really streamlines
Easy Army is amazing, and it's free to get on there.
They can do that in a book form, so you could be like, here you go.
But the problem is, because a lot of TOs, like I personally say, I want Easy Army format when you send me your list, because I want to be able to look at 20 different lists, and they're all set up exactly the same.
Prints out.
PDF, it's free. It's amazing.
It'll
and it gives
give
you
all the stats and all the special abilities and everything. Prints it right out for you. All your points, how many order dice are in your army. Everything's in there.
It's awesome. The problem is, I had some newer players come to the tournament who didn't quite understand the generic, what could be taken, what couldn't. And Easy Army allows you to add in everything, whether it's off of a campaign or not, which is great for I just want to build a fun list. But then I have to explain to them why Easy Army lets you build it, but it's not actually.
They get kicked out. No, I'm just kidding.
I had a couple semi-heated conversations with people of why they couldn't take certain things.
Not on our side, and there's some people,
But again, in a tournament setting, I expect a competitive level, so I'm not going to be too upset. But so that I'd love to see. Again, some small tweaks to updating some things with the unit and force selections.
All the rule book is really put together well.
I truly going through. Like I said, the medium machine gun is a big thing that pops.
We didn't talk about vehicles much at all.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's an infantry-based game. It is. You can take a couple vehicles.
Most of your workforce in this game are going to be infantry units. They do the most work in this game.
Right.
Vehicles usually aren't allowed to hold key positions and stuff unless they're...
Vehicles are meant to support your infantry.
They are.
You don't see that too often. What's my biggest...
Some people think this is going to turn into, some people want to play it like, oh, you brought your biggest tank, I have my biggest tank, we're going to have tank fights on the side. That's fine. Some people play it that way. I bring in tank tanks that have more
That's one of
support for my units.
and you and I both play it. It's one of
Yeah.
my personal pet peeves with this game system is that you end up having, I'm going to bring the biggest baddest tank because I think my opponent's going to bring the biggest baddest tank, and then you get two battles
Everybody
going on
sinks
the
a
table.
bunch of points into
you
there.
Get, yeah, you get infantry fighting, and then you get
blown up tanks.
two tanks just shooting at each other over here.
Yeah.
Because everyone wants to bring the big cool tigers and panthers.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's fun too.
Yeah, but that's not what the game system's meant as. But
No,
yeah.
we utilize them more for our armored vehicles and our tanks and stuff, more for pinning down, holding their units in place.
Supporting supporting the infantry
a
drive
lot of
as it
support.
should be.
Yeah, a lot of support for your units.
The only other thing then I'll say that I think they need to work on a little bit, and they are working on this, so props to Warlord Games, is we talked briefly about the metal figures. They're in the process of updating a lot of their metal figure line to newer plastic model line.
I would like to see that for sure.
I would like to see a little bit more of that. I'd like to see that push a little harder. One of the things that they've been talking about now for a year and a half. Now, granted, this past year has thrown things into a complete turmoil, but updating updating their Italians.
2020. Get out of here! Somebody get out of here!
It's soon. We're getting it.
I know, very soon, but that doesn't mean it's going to get any better. Let's hope. Positive.
I haven't seen the trailer for 2021.
We're going to play all
so.
kinds of bolt action and be happy, and everything's going to go wonderful. That's what we got to tell ourselves.
Yeah, you heard it here first, folks.
That's right.
But
Optimist.
they've been working on updating their.
Two thumbs in an optimist. This guy.
They've been updating their metals to plastic. Obviously, some things out of their control have slowed that down a little bit, but I would like to see more of that. But
not just with this game
Right.
system across the board with a lot of places.
You always get that conversation of, do you want to see them more fill the gaps of what's missing in their product line, or do you want to see them replace what you can already get in your product line with plastic? That
one.
And a lot of people who truly
Rather
despise metal are going to say that.
Metal, get out
some
of here.
people are going to rather say, I'd rather see you build that model that you say I can
And
take.
some people are going to be like, this guy hates metal.
Yeah.
What's wrong with him? Metal's the best. It feels so good in your hands.
So,
Yeah.
what I always
It's
hate though is
unnecessarily
when
difficult to work with.
Well, and what I hate too is when you mix
Especially for
squads
beginners.
and you're moving metal models, and all of a sudden you grab a plastic model and throw it
Oh,
across
do you know
the
what the
table
worst
because
is?
it's there.
Dropping a metal model on concrete or something by accident, and now he has this squished head or something like that.
and you see all the crack lines on
and
it,
just
paint
this
all the way.
There goes arms and legs and pieces. They're just popping.
But really,
It's disheartening.
I mean,
Plastic just bounces. It's like, hey guys, I'm okay.
yeah.
Yep.
That's really, I mean, honestly, that's really all I would like to see change. I mean,
I really don't have anything else either. I think they did a fantastic job. If anybody from the production team or anyone else sees this, and hey, you guys are awesome. Thank you for a wonderful game. Thank you for a great rule set. The absolute best rules I've ever played.
So, yeah, I think overall, one of the things that I didn't want to steal from, and I'm going to promote somebody else here. One of the things I didn't want to steal from is Little Wars TV on YouTube. They're actually based out of Pennsylvania themselves. They're an amazing group of historical gamers. Check out their YouTube page. They do something similar to this with rule sets where they go and review, and they break it into categories, and they have this great point system and sliding scale system. I don't want to take from them at all or steal any of their stuff because what they do is absolutely amazing, and we are no way near their level.
I'm brand new at this. First try.
But
be kind.
What's your base overall thought on the game system?
I love this game. Love this game. This is my favorite game. I've said it before. I say it again. It does so many things so well that I see other game systems struggle with, and it streamlines a lot of things in other game systems that I played. That unnecessary things that I feel just like defense dice. Come on. There's nothing wrong with defensive dice in some games. I understand that. Some of them they need it to balance things, whatever. That's the way they work. But this game is really done well. It's streamlined. It's fun. The pinning is amazing. The shooting, the being able to synergize your weapons and your artillery. You want to use things the way they would have been used to make things happen on the table. The constantly changing strategies is fun, even though I have a little bit of a problem with the random dice pulls, but not too much, Otherwise, fantastic, and I love it. Yep.
I agree. It's definitely up to the top of the list of games that I play. I I like the fact that, again, it's what people complain about. Some people complain about is also what I kind of like about it, in a sense of that it can be very vanilla, where it's kind of based across the board as far as shooting and as far as an infantry unit is an infantry unit. I like that fact because they've come out and said before, and matter of fact, I think in an interview that I just totally blanked, that Alessio had said himself in an interview, was that bolt action was always meant to be competitive. And so I think when you take a competitive game and you break it down, it can also be played in a very relaxed atmosphere.
It's the best of both
with
worlds,
how
really
you want
is.
to play. Yeah, I mean, it's cons of being vanilla are also one of the pros, because I have gotten probably about 4 or 5 new people started in the last month and a half in this game system, and I can sit them down, play a 500-point game, and they're hooked. And because it's very easy, it's very basic, they can grab a easy army box set and have everything they need to get started without having to worry about piecemealing stuff together.
I've showed a few people too. I mean, I don't have the amount of people that show that he usually does at demo days and stuff. But once, like, some friends and different things will be playing something else, they'll be like, hey, come here, look at this table, doesn't that look cool? Let's play. And they try it and they really like it. Now, I can't say that I've gotten anyone to jump in because they feel like it's some of the people I play with are more casual players and stuff. They like to play with my stuff, you know? So they're like, oh, we can just put this
really
U.S. Army up and we can do a 500 point or a 650 or 700, whatever, and they're fine with that. But they really enjoyed it too. So I haven't ever showed anybody this game and they're like, ooh.
Yeah.
That was horrible. No, they all loved it.
Yep, and I've brought people in from the sci-fi world. I've brought who really maybe were not a historical gamer that said, okay, this is pretty cool. I've brought people in from like here at the store. There's a big Magic the Gathering fan base. A couple of new people that got started. This is their first foray into tabletop gaming because the tables look good, the miniatures look good, it's easy to learn,
And they get to play with tanks.
And they get to play with tanks. So overall, again, I don't know if it would be my top game that I've ever played, but it's definitely within my top 5, maybe even top 3.
Don't listen to him. It's the best.
So it's definitely worth taking a look at.
It is great.
But yeah, overall it's great. I think we've rambled enough.
I think so
hope,
too. More than enough, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Especially for me.
Probably people have already cut off about an hour ago.
Yeah. For anybody who's stuck around, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I hope you guys.
It's our first try.
Hope you guys liked it. Again, always put down in the comments what you like to see different. This is going to be a whole series that we'll always include with whatever game systems we play.
You may even see me again if you're unlucky enough, unfortunate enough.
May bring you back for.
He might. I don't know. He might not ask me to come back after this. We'll see.
I may bring you back for another one that just totally slipped my mind because I'm thinking about bolt action. Yeah, maybe a Legion.
Maybe Legion. Oh, I'm just starting a Legion.
Maybe some Firelock games. Some
Ooh.
Blood and Plunder.
Blood and Plunder. I can do a little Blood and Plunder.
Blood and Plunder.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd like to eventually go to having a panel of maybe 3 people sitting on here. I just don't want it to go too long, but we'll see. But it'd be cool to have you on for Blood and Plunder. It'd be cool to have Eric on, who's the quartermaster. But that's a whole different.
Whatever you need
we're
me
gonna have to
for,
talk about
I'm
that.
here. If you decide.
Yeah, but let us know your thoughts on the game system. That's a big thing. If you agree with what we said, if you disagree, why do you disagree?
Yep. Please be kind and please,
Yeah.
comment appropriately. Try to keep it.
It's the
family oriented.
It's the
We try.
interwebs.
It's we understand.
It's the interwebs.
We're far from perfect.
I've been called worse.
Yeah, me too. Oh, yeah,
That's a whole
definitely.
other series.
But that is another series. I worked in juvenile justice for a decade. I've been called a lot worse.
I can imagine.
But
thanks for sticking around.
thank you very much
around,
for your time and
Let us know what you think.
let us know. Thank you and
Take care.
play more
Happy
bolt
gaming.
action.
Yeah.
Or start playing bolt action.
Yeah, there we go. We'll catch you guys later.
Bye.